Is there a more form player in world football at the moment?
If I can go first, because you're French, Karim the Dream!
Those of us from the red side of Manchester are desperate for an upset in just one of these ties. Is that too much to ask for?
Ooh, you've gone weak this week. What's going on here?
I do think that if De Bruyne can lead Man City to a Champions League, and I do think that he'll trump them all in terms of their best players, certainly in the last 10 years or so.
What's the odds on that?
325, brother. That's 325. You heard well. 325.
Welcome back to Baller, brought to you by WhoScored in association with Ladbrokes. We are talking about City versus Madrid. It's the Champions League semi-final, and those of us from the red side of Manchester are desperate for an upset in just one of these ties. Is that too much to ask for? But before we dive into this week's talking points, there are literally 4 very, very simple steps for you to get involved and have your own Ladbrokes five-a-side team. Here's what you got to do. 1, pick your formation. Very straightforward. 2, choose your 5 players. 3, select their stats and enter your team. That's it. That's like 3 steps, if I'm being honest. But, we're calling it 4 steps. That's all you've got to do. It's that easy. And we're going to talk about ours a little bit later. You only have to put £1 on. And if you do, you can win your share of £1,000 in exclusive cash league. Now, we'll be running through where we think the value lies and the different bets and this, that, and the other. And hopefully, Julien has brought his big boy balls with him this time, and he's going to actually put a bet on that's worth having, because last week was a little bit on the weak side, wasn't it? Okay? Right, let's get into it then. Should we have a look at what happened last time, shall we?
Yeah, the first leg was, as a neutral, it was just incredible to watch, wasn't it? You had, on one hand, you had Pep Guardiola's team, which is perfectly constructed, going through patterns of plays they've done thousands and thousands of times before. And then on the other hand, you had Real Madrid, who probably accepted they couldn't really match up and just sit back and hope for the best. They just wanted to make it as chaotic as possible. And in the end, they did that. And I think that's really been the feature of Real Madrid's Champions League knockout stage campaign, really. They've been second best in the majority of games when you think about PSG, Chelsea, and obviously most of the first leg against Man City. They've pretty much been second best in all of them, but they've managed to produce the big moments at the right moments to not only stay in the tie but go through. I looked into it, and they've actually been behind across the 5 matches. They've actually been behind for 185 minutes of those games and only been ahead for 83 of them. So they just know how to stay in the tie. And I'm expecting Man City to win, but I wouldn't be completely surprised if they did pull it off and go to the final.
They've got this incredible ability, isn't it? Of when you don't finish them off, they always find a way. They've got, I don't know if it's a bit of luck, maybe if it's a bit of experience or a lot of experience. I've been in that position before, having won all those Champions League before. It might just be talent of Modric and Benzema. I mean, Benzema especially, 14 goals in the Champions League. I think his XG, it depends really where you look for, but let's say it's between 6 or 6.5 and 7 something for 14 goals. I mean, the guy clearly is scoring goals he should never been scoring, or that no one else is scoring. And that's incredible. And that's where the difference is as well, I think. But that first leg was incredible. And I don't know if the second leg can be as open. Pep Guardiola would have surely hated that first leg in the sense that City had almost no control in a way of the game, certainly when they lost the ball, which you would think he would try to correct for the second leg. But we'll see. It might be as crazy as the first leg.
It was interesting afterwards, wasn't it? Because Guardiola said afterwards that he was really happy with the way his team played. But as you said, Julien, they had no control. And I can't imagine he was particularly happy with the way that they essentially let Real Madrid off the hook, because they were every time they crossed halfway, they were just battering them. But yeah, they just didn't make even though they scored 4 goals, they could have had 6 or 7. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he was pretty angry when he left the cameras.
The group chat went off. Obviously, City scored extremely early, and that was obviously what City really needed to do. But someone in the group chat said there's still time for Benzema to score a hat-trick. Yeah. And he was very, very close to doing it as well. And I think he's in this weird vein of form at the moment where he's almost mystical. And I know we're going to talk about him a little bit later on, so I'll keep it brief on him. Going into a semi-final like this with the tie away from home, I just think this is a great opportunity for Pep to overthink this. To try and look genius and balls it up, please.
You remember the back three against Lyon in that? Okay, it was a one-legged quarterfinals, of course, because of the pandemic and the final 8 in Lisbon. But you could well think, okay, what's the best to control Benzema and restrict Benzema. Let's go to a back three. Let's have, Laporte, Diaz, and Fernandinho as the back three, and then 2 wing backs, and that completely backfired. I mean, I'm with you, Steve. I'm with you.
Someone else that might have something to say in this is Vinicius. He was sensational last week at the Etihad. Are we expecting him to have an impact this week?
Yeah, for sure. I thought it was actually really interesting at the start of that game. Real Madrid seemed more intent on attacking down their right-hand side, I guess because Zinchenko took on that sort of João Cancelo role of coming inside and obviously left the space behind him. And it wasn't really until Pep brought on a 600-year-old Fernandinho for John Stones where they started looking to switch the attacks to Vinicius' side. And obviously it didn't go well to start with because Fernandinho put that ball in for City's third goal. But then obviously Vinicius absolutely ruined him for his goal. But I wonder, obviously João Cancelo's back this week, but I wonder if Guardiola would actually have preferred to have Kyle Walker back, just because if you think about the way that Vinicius sprinted about 45 yards to score, if Kyle Walker was there, that just wouldn't have happened. And obviously it'll be interesting to see if Cancelo's told that he can play his normal game or if he has to sit back and sort of guard against the threat of Vinicius. Because as much as Benzema has been obviously out of this world and incredible, I would say that the improvements that Vinicius has made has been as important to Real Madrid's season. If you think about the way they've sort of developed this Harry Kane and Son sort of partnership up front, I looked into it and they've directly contributed to 9 goals. So they've scored or assisted each other for 9 league goals this season. And they've done that for 6 more in the Champions League this season, which is more than anyone else in Europe. So it's going to be interesting to see what Pep does with João Cancelo, because it looks like he will probably have to play right back. But yeah, Vinicius, just the developments that he's made this season is just incredible. And it just sets up the game so nicely, I think.
It was only last season, remember, in the Gladbach game at halftime when Benzema was telling Ferland Mendy, don't pass him the ball, talking about Vinicius. He's playing against us. And the camera caught it. There was a big controversy. And Benzema was very open with Vinicius. And then with everybody asking him, he said, I was not happy with the way he was playing. I told Mendy, I told Vinicius as well that he was not good enough. And that was a very different Vinicius. He was one that almost got the ball and then was not sure what to do. So he would just run into a straight line or put his head down and try to dribble past the whole team. And his game has got much more mature this season. I think he's worked a lot on it. I think Carlo Ancelotti has been a big factor on it. And Benzema, funnily enough, has helped him a lot. But Benzema never not liked Vinicius. He just wanted him to be more efficient in the way he was playing. And I think the two of them, I agree with Josh, then the partnership is fantastic, and they complement each other well. Remember that goal against Chelsea, for example, in the first leg at Stamford Bridge, that 1-2, and then the cross from Vinicius, he knew exactly where Benzema was for the header. And now they've really developed that partnership that is so lethal. And you think, if you're the opposition team, you would put something in place to prevent that. And yet, game after game after game, they manage to find each other, find space for each other, do those little 1-2s on the edge of the box, on the left-hand side. That usually cause a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I like Josh's point a little bit earlier on Kyle Walker playing. I'm pretty sure City will just go and make a run-of-the-mill win against Real Madrid and everyone will be wounded. Well, United fans will be wounded. But I can just pin all my hopes on he'll just tinker with it just too much. And one of the facts that I think he might tinker with it is he's got so many options that I think that the temptation to mess with it exists when you've got all of those options, because you've got so many different ways you could go about getting the victory in this. And I think he's better if he just gets out of his own way. I think he's a far better technical football coach than he is a tactician. And because he wants to have the ball, I think those tacticians that are able to go and win games in moments, they're quite often people that are going to do things without the ball, which is counter to what Pep's going to do as a technical football coach and football philosopher, if you like. And that's why you come unstuck against the Jose Mourinhos and the Diego Simeones of this world, because they're going to just go with a very, very rigid hit you on the counters, my only sort of card to play. And when you've got a team that's going to push right up to the halfway line, that's exactly what you want to do. And bringing in somebody like a Kyle Walker might be something that they think of, but they lose aerially against a team that's fantastic in the air, like Real Madrid. And that's where I think that you could see this game overthunk by Guardiola. Another player that I think could have a massive say in this on the Real Madrid side is Casemiro. He's in my five-a-side team. for the tackling ability. And I think in a game like this is going to be a big game for him especially.
Yeah, I think we really saw his absence in the first leg. Real Madrid really felt it. I think you saw it just after 90 seconds. What Man City did was they played Foden and Mahrez so wide to stretch the back four and create those gaps where their own midfielders could run into. And De Bruyne did it after 90 seconds, I think it was, in the second minute. He had that free header because there was no Real Madrid player picking him up. Because that's not Toni Kroos's or Luka Modric's natural game. Yeah. Casemiro has actually made more tackles and interceptions combined this season than Modric and Kroos combined. So it's not their game, and it was such a massive miss. And as you touched on there, Steve, it's not. Sometimes you don't necessarily think it straight away. It's not obvious to think that Man City are a great team in the air, but they scored two headers in the first leg. They scored from two corners at the weekend. Only Freiburg have scored more set piece goals, excluding penalties, than Man City in Europe's top 5 leagues this season. And Casemiro, his aerial threat in the air is going to be massive for Real Madrid to try and counter those situations. I looked into it again, and Eder Militao has made the most aerial duels for Real Madrid. I think he's on 113 for the season. He's on 105 for the season. Sorry, Casemiro is on 100, and then the next is Eduardo Camavinga on 27. So there's a massive gap there. And then obviously they only had Militao on the pitch in the first leg. So yeah, it's gonna make a big difference in terms of reading the play and also in the air.
What you lose with Kyle Walker not being there is a big gain for Casemiro to be there for Real Madrid, because apart from everything that Josh said in terms of leadership and again experience and even device, he's not as vicious maybe, or vicious in the good sense, in tactical fouls and things like that, than Fernandinho, but he's got that in him as well, which I'm not sure Toni Kroos has. For example, Toni Kroos would politely let you go. Casemiro would just break your leg in two if he had to. That means qualifying for the final, for example. So I think it's huge. I think the relationship as well with Modric and Kroos that someone like Valverde doesn't have yet, it's certainly not the same understanding, is massive, because I know it's a bit of a cliche, but we often say those kind of games are won in midfield as well. With the ball or without the ball, whether you attack or you defend, Rodri and Casemiro will be key. Same with De Bruyne and Modric. Whoever is going to create more, whoever's going to be able to outsmart the other one in midfield, will certainly, I think, be on top at the end of the game. So Casemiro to come back, even if he's not 100%, is huge for Real Madrid.
It will also enable Ancelotti to play Valverde on the right wing from the start, because I think that's what he's like to do in these big games. But obviously, he couldn't do that in the first leg. And in the first leg, City had nearly 50% of their attacks down their left-hand side, and Rodrigo is obviously not as defensively minded as Valverde. So in the second leg, you'll expect Valverde to double up with Carvajal and sort of stop City from having that freedom down their left-hand side.
I'm not worried about it, but some of the viewers might be a little bit concerned that this is looking a little bit like a Real Madrid loving. But before we wrap it up and move on to Benzema, we have to give Kevin De Bruyne a little bit of love and attention. If Manchester City do go on and win the Champions League this year, I'm fairly certain Kevin De Bruyne's going to have a massive hand in the reason why.
When I came into this game, I was sort of thinking of the best players in Manchester City's recent history, and I thought obviously the names that spring out: David Silva, Aguero, Yaya Toure, Vincent Kompany, and they've all played their own part in what has made Manchester City's modern success. But I do think that if De Bruyne can lead Man City to a Champions League, and I do think that he'll trump them all in terms of their best players, certainly in the last 10 years or so. I looked into our WhoScored ratings since we started receiving up-to data in 2009, and De Bruyne is actually their top-rated player, ahead of the names that I said. And I think when I sometimes think of De Bruyne, I think that his one weakness is that he doesn't look like an athlete, and he might seem quite slow, but that isn't really the case. Sometimes when I watch him power through midfield, he actually reminds me a bit of Yaya Toure. He's just such a powerful runner. And he's one of those players that he actually looks faster when he has the ball than when he doesn't. He's an incredible player, and especially since Christmas really, he's been in sort of outrageous form. And I do think it will fall down to De Bruyne or Benzema, as we'll come on to soon. But yeah, one of those two players I think is really going to decide the outcome of this game on Wednesday night.
I think you both spot on KDB. If City want to go through, he has to have a good game. I think if Casemiro managed somehow to sort of limit his impact and his influence on the game, I think City would be in trouble. Of course, you can go to Foden, you can go wide, you've got other options, but he's your outstanding creator. We saw him scoring even in the first leg. And you would expect him, again, we say the big games belong to the big players, blah, blah, blah. All that is true. We see it with Benzema this season and Modric to a certain extent. We have to see it from Kevin De Bruyne as well. He's got it for sure. He was rested at the weekend, which I think is huge. And now he can go again. You would think that between that midfield, especially Valverde starts, they would be especially on the De Bruyne watch and make sure that he doesn't get too much of the ball, or when he gets the ball, he can't do those runs and those transitions that he's so good at, maybe the best in the world. That those first 5 or 10 yards with the ball when he breaks through and breaks the lines is pretty incredible. And then don't let him shoot. I think this is the other thing, because we saw against Chelsea, for example, at the Etihad and a few other games, that he's also lethal in those positions just on the edge of the box or 20 yards out. He finds the spot so easily. So again, one of the key members. And again, we go back to that midfield. It will all be played there, I think.
Karim Benzema. Is there a more form player in world football at the moment?
If I can go first, because he's French, Karim the Dream. I mean, I had to say on the show, it's my first time that I can say Karim the Dream on the show. Apart from Kylian, I don't think there is. And even Kylian would probably himself said, okay, he's still the boss for now. 34 years old, he turned 34 at the end of December, and it's never been that good. And we need a whole show to explain why to all the listeners. There's a few things quickly. The experience, the fight, how he looks after his body, and all the invisible work that he does as a footballer. So everything that is not basically on the training pitch or on the football pitch, the match, is incredible. I mean, I know him well, so I'm completely biased. But at home, what he eats, the recovery, the physio work, everything that he does for his back, for all of that is just incredible. I think he's been helped by the fact that for 5 years he didn't play with the national team because of the sex tape scandal, of course. So that took away, not that he wanted it, but a good 70 or 80 games that he would have played at the top level with all the traveling that would happen with it. So I think that's also a reason why he's so good now, because there was no international football for a long time. Incredible form, and that confidence that he has. We mentioned earlier the XG and his total of goals in the Champions League. This is unreal, really. The goals that he's been scoring, the 2 against Chelsea in the first leg, the first one, and even the Panenka against City in that first leg. It's just incredible. The guy is from another planet.
Not often you'd say this, but I think Florentino Perez actually deserves a little bit of credit for the Benzema we now see. Because I remember, especially during the early years, or certainly when Ronaldo was there were often summers where there were often like serious calls for a new striker to be signed, because Benzema was maybe scoring 10 to 15 goals a season in the league, and that obviously doesn't seem a lot for a Real Madrid striker. But obviously we're now seeing, now Ronaldo's left, that Benzema is capable of being the main man, and he's delivering on a weekly basis. And the Panenka penalty, just to produce that in a Champions League semi-final when it was 4-2, if you miss that, that's the tie's over, and it's not long left in the game. To produce that, it's just out. Like, I just couldn't believe what I'd seen. And obviously he'd missed his last 2 penalties, didn't he, at the weekend?
Yeah,
the weekend
3 or 4 even. Yeah.
So to produce that in that moment, it's just incredible. And like Julien said, he's got 14 for the season now. That's, I think, only 3 players have managed to score more than that in a single Champions League campaign. He's one off Lewandowski as the 3rd top goal scoring player in European club competition. He's in a league of his own at the moment. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised again if we saw another Benzema masterclass, as he has bailed Real Madrid out a few times already in this campaign.
Please. It's the perfect fairy tale for him to do it this year in this manner. The season that he's having, it could genuinely happen. I think that's why we're all going to be tuning in to watch this game. Josh, do you want to give us the Who Scored 5-a-side before we have a look at mine and Julian's?
Yeah, for sure. So we've the players that we've got, and then we've mentioned throughout the show, we've got Casemiro as our hacker to be carded. He's been carded more times than any other player between the 2 squads this season, 16 yellow cards. So we think that he's going to have a big part to play in breaking Manchester City's attacks down. We've got Laporte down as our baller to make 70 plus passes. You have to go back to December for the last time Laporte had fewer than 70 in a game that he actually finished. He had 77 in the first leg. When you think of all the attacking talent Man City have, it's pretty weird that João Cancelo has had the 3rd most shots for Manchester City. He's had 30 more than Jack Grealish this season. Of those 84 shots, 58 have been from outside the box. So we've got him just to have one shot from outside the box. Kevin De Bruyne, obviously, as we've already spoken about, we've got him to have 2 shots. He's averaging 3 per 90 in the competition this season. And to finish it off, it would be weird if we didn't have Benzema to score 1. So we've gone for Casemiro to be carded, Laporte 70-plus passes, João Cancelo to have 1 shot from outside the box, De Bruyne to have 2 shots in general, and Benzema to score at least once. And that's 22 to 1. But yeah, I'll leave the floor for you guys and your big bets.
So because last week you called me weak, clearly, because you were so overwhelmed by my selection, my pick, I thought go big or go home this week. So I've gone really big, but big in terms of the odds. But I think they're reachable though. So let's start. I've got Ederson in goal to keep a clean sheet, because as much as I love Benzema, and maybe that's a bit me not wanting to jinx him, I've gone for Ederson to not concede. I've got Eder Militao with at least 3 tackles, because I think that City will put them under pressure, and I think Militao, especially if Nacho plays next to him, will have to cover Nacho as much as looking after his own game, and that could be a lot of things to do, including the tackles. KDB with at least an assist. I've got Ruben Dias with 80 passes at least. So I'm banging on the ball to be more with Ruben Dias in Dias's feet than Laporte, and Dias really starting all the moves and the attacks. And then I've got Karim the Dream, of course, not scoring again, not to jinx him, but at least to have 2 shots on target. And then if he wants to score, my friend, he can.
What's the odds on that?
325, brother. That's 325. You heard well. 325.
It's not like outrageous. The odds are outrageous, but it's not like you're not asking Benzema to score 6, De Bruyne to assist 5.
Diaz's passes is very high as well. That's probably a lot more than his average. But wow, if you fancy that, go and check that one out. Okay, here's what I've gone for. I've gone with Modric to make 1 assist. Achievable. I've gone with Cancelo to make 70 passes. I would expect that, in all honesty. I think City are going to see a lot of the ball, and it's going to be very much a counter-attacking Real Madrid game. I have gone with Courtois to concede 1. I don't see a clean sheet happening in this game. I've gone with Casemiro to make 3 tackles, which I think he'll probably make more than that. Maybe 4, maybe 5. And I've gone with Karim Benzema for 5 shots. I think some of these might be erratic, but we're not talking on target or anything there. We're just talking shots. So I think he'll be pulling the trigger at any available opportunity. Now, when I did it, it was coming in at 64 to 1. Josh, have you got the same?
Yeah.
How much, sorry?
Actually 65 to 1, I think, actually, it's come out as.
Oh, okay.
But yeah.
65. Ooh, you've gone weak this week. What's going on here?
Of course, if you fancy any of those, as we said earlier, there's a 3/4 very straightforward, simple steps if you want to get involved and pick your 5-a-side, and you can see the. What was your odds again, Josh?
I feel a bit embarrassed to say them. 22 to 1. 22 to 1.
Don't bother coming next week. There's no point playing with you anyway. So.
None of us have actually won this yet. We've all come very close. We've seen 3s and 4s, haven't we? No one's actually quite got all 5. But if you fancy having a go, let us know if you can beat us. The link for that is going to be in the description below. Please gamble responsibly, of course. But thank you to Julien. Thank you to Josh. Do you want to give them the terms for getting involved for the cash prize? Yeah, so as again, we'll have an unrivaled £1,000 cash pool to give away. So yeah, over £1,000 in cash prizes to be won, £500 for the winner, as well as free bets for any player that finishes in the top 25% of the leaderboard. All you have to do, as Steve said, is to select your lineup, 3 or 4 simple steps. The link can be found in the description of this video. Winning bets are ranked from longest odds to shortest odds, while all non-winning bets are ranked by a percentage of that bet that lands. So even if you only have 3 or 4 winners come in, there's still a chance that you could land a free bet. But yeah, just please gamble responsibly and only gamble what you can afford to lose. Alrighty, that's it from us for this week. We're going to be back again next week, but enjoy this week's European football. There's going to be some absolute crackers. And Reds, we are just praying for some sort of upset, aren't we? Let's be honest with ourselves. See you in the next one.